In the early 14th century, the Ottomans were a semi-nomadic Turkic tribe living on the Anatolian peninsula, just like so many other tribes. Its leader, Osman, first pops up in historical sources in descriptions of the 1301 Battle of Bafias, fought between him and the Byzantines. He emerged victorious, with the most significant gain being that his beylik became an independent political unit. Over time, they continued their fight against the Byzantine Empire and even annexed some of their neighboring beyliks or principalities. His victories made Osman famous, and his name traveled far and wide, attracting nomadic warriors from all over the peninsula. Osman passed away in 1324, increasing his territory significantly while respecting the strong fortifications surrounding his territories. His son, Orhan, succeeded him. He continued his conquests in the region. When he annexed the territory of his main contender, the Karasids, the Ottomans gained access to seaports and an ideal springboard for raiding the European mainland. The Byzantine emperor signed treaties with the Ottomans, where they promised to come to his defense if need be. That is how they gained the Zimba fortress on the Gallipoli Peninsula. After defeating a Serbian-Bulgarian army marching against Constantinople, the emperor awarded them the fort. But the emperor was a toothless tiger, and 2 years later the Ottomans simply captured the entire peninsula without any repercussions. Around this time, Orhan passed away and was succeeded by his son Murad I. For the next 3 decades, these Turkic people rapidly expanded into the European Balkan. In the 1360s, they conquered Adrianople, renaming it Edirne and making it their capital. Its strategic location facilitated its expansion in the Balkan. Capturing Philippopolis in 1363, they cut off the Bulgarians from Byzantium. The Byzantine emperor could only look on as the Ottomans surrounded and cut off his city. To preserve his position, he acknowledged Murad's suzerainty, rendering him no more than an Ottoman vassal. On their western border, the Ottomans met the remnants of the Serbian Empire. In 1355, its ruler, Emperor Stefan Dušan, passed away with decades of internal turmoil as a result. Despite internal turmoil, the Serbs were wary of the ever-expanding Ottoman Empire. Already in 1371, up to 60,000 soldiers under the Serbian king marched onto Edirne. This endeavor ended in a disaster, and in Ottoman chronicles it is referred to as the destruction of the Serbs. Sultan Murad's forces ambushed the Crusader army close by Edirne. It led to thousands killed and drowned in the subsequent rout. If anything, it confirmed the Ottomans' position in the Balkan. And Murad realized the potential of retaining the administrative infrastructure of territory, saving him the hassle of erecting a new system. So he offered many rulers the right to manage their current territories, as long as they became Ottoman vassals. They had to supply him with troops in wartime, pay tribute and taxes. In return, Murad agreed not to fight them. Employing this tactic, Murad rallied smaller lords in the Balkan against the large northern army sent to try and expel the Ottomans. In 1371, he began his campaign against Macedonia. He captured Monastir in 1382. 3 years later, he captured Sofia and forced the Bulgarian Tsar to accept Ottoman suzerainty. The new Byzantine emperor had to renew his ties of vassalage or face a besiegement. A few years earlier, Ottomans lost the Gallipoli Peninsula to the Savoyan Crusade. Now, the emperor could do nothing but again sacrifice the peninsula to the Ottomans to prevent a war. Murad mainly focused on consolidating his position, and after subduing the Bulgarian territories, he captured the Serbian city of Niš and the Venetian-controlled city of Thessaloniki. Among the feudal lords forced to accept Ottoman suzerainty was Lazar, controlling the most powerful state in the disintegrated Serbian Empire, Moravian Serbia. He must have grown worried around the time the Ottomans captured Sofia, and the capture of Niš and vassalage of Serbian feudal lords didn't contribute to his sense of security. In 1386, gathering an army consisting of Serbs, Bosnians, Albanians and Wallachians, he defeated the local Ottoman commander Lala Sahin Pasha at Pločnik. Achieving several minor victories, more Wallachians, Bulgarians, Albanians and Hungarians joined the ranks of Lazar's army to repel the Ottoman yoke. In response, Murad cut off Bulgaria from the League. He diligently prepared his campaign, concluding peace treaties with Venice and Genoa. Then he began his epic march towards Lazar's army. On his way through the Balkans, many feudal lords joined him, whether it was voluntary or under pressure. He managed to gather up to 40,000 troops. Both sides used scouts, and as they approached Kosovo Polje, Lazar and Murad prepared for the inevitable battle. At dawn on June 15, 1389, Lazar positioned his troops on the north bank of the river Lab, approximately 3 miles to the northwest of Pristina, commanding no more than between 15 and 20,000 soldiers, of whom at best a few thousand cavalry. His army was significantly outnumbered. Lazar planned on using the river Lab as a defensive line. Lazar himself commanded the main contingent of Serbs. To his right, the nobleman Vuk Branković commanded the remainder of the Serbs, and on his left, the Bosnian Grand Duke Vlatko Vuković commanded mainly Bosnian troops. The center front lines were manned by heavy Serbian cavalry, supported on its flanks by the lighter cavalry contingents equipped with bows and arrows. Behind the cavalry stood Lazar's infantry. Both flanks commanded no more than 7,000 troops. Some chronicles talk of the use of several pieces of artillery lined up between Lazar, Branković and Vuković. Meanwhile, Murad commanded at least double the number of soldiers, of whom up to 9,000 were cavalry. Chronicles reveal his army, including his mercenaries, were much better equipped than the Serbs. His army arrived at Pristina on June 14, where he aligned his troops and had them prepare for battle. Part of his army encamped south of a split-off of the Sitnica River. They included elite Janissary units and European levies. Murad commanded the center of his armies, with in front of him the majority of his Janissaries. His son Bayezid commanded the right wing, mainly consisting of Anatolian cavalry, and his oldest son Jakub commanded the left, consisting of another cavalry contingent. Both flanks were supported by approximately 1,000 archers. Chronicles recount the course of the battle in a different manner. Either a volley by the Ottoman archers against Branković's cavalry, or a Serbian artillery attack, missing any discernible targets, marked the beginning of the battle. Branković's cavalry now formed into a great V-wedge formation and charged Jakub's left flank. They managed to push back the Ottoman cavalry, causing significant damage in their formation. Meanwhile, both Lazar and Vuković launched their charge. Understanding the Serbian momentum on his left, Murad ordered Bayezid to launch a counterattack on the right flank. Vukovic's Bosnians engaged in heavy close combat with Bayezid's light cavalry, but whereas Branković's flank managed to hold out against the Ottomans, both Lazar and Vuković had trouble fighting the agile cavalry and light infantry. Murad's Janissaries, supported by cavalry, charged into the Serbian infantry vanguard. Realizing they were outnumbered, part of the main Serbian infantry pulled back to their left. Their retreat left Prince Lazar exposed. Vuković inflicted heavy damage on Bayezid's wing, but when the Ottomans launched a strong counterattack, it pushed back the Bosnians. They were driven towards the center, where Lazar's infantry only barely held out against Murad's Janissaries and cavalry. Meanwhile, on Branković's wing, things turned against the Serbian cavalry. The Ottomans managed to gain the upper hand and pushed back the heavy cavalry. Fighting continued all day, but slowly and surely Branković's wing was pushed towards the Sitnica River, leaving Lazar's center entirely exposed to Jakub's wing. At a critical moment in battle, Vuković's Bosnians retreated from the battlefield altogether. No discernible reason has been given, but likely he presumed they were to lose the battle and wanted to preserve as many of his troops as he could. It is likely that upon his retreat, Lazar was captured by the Ottoman Janissaries, who finally broke through the center ranks of the Serbs. Branković's troops, too, retreated from the battlefield upon seeing the center lines broken. Although Murad's elite Janissaries protected him, he was killed either during or right after the battle. The Serb Miloš Obilić either posed as a traitor to get close to him and then stabbed him, or feigned his death on the battlefield and struck him when Murad inspected the battlefield. The Sultan died, and Obilić, too, was immediately killed by his bodyguards. Upon Murad's death, Bayezid took over command of the army. He led the Ottomans to victory. There weren't that many Serbs and Bosnians left anymore, but with Branković and Vuković gone, it didn't take too long for the final soldiers to retreat from the battlefield. Upon Murad's death, Bayezid took over command of the army. He led the Ottomans to a victory, and with both Branković and Vuković gone, the remaining Serbian troops too retreated from the battlefield. Preventing any other claim to the Ottoman throne, Bayezid had his brother Jakub strangled right after. To avenge his father's death, he had Prince Lazar executed. Bayezid returned to Edirne to be crowned Sultan. There weren't any follow-up campaigns, but nevertheless the losses were disastrous for the Serbians. However, initially Vukovic reported the Serbian losses were light. Only later did it become clear Lazar had fallen and the Serbs had suffered a severe blow. Bayezid installed Lazar's son Stefan Lazarevic on the throne as a loyal vassal. Moreover, he ensured his loyalty by marrying Lazar's daughter. It would not be for another 70 years for Serbia to be fully annexed by the Ottomans. Thank you for watching this video. If there's a topic or event you would like to know more about, let me know your thoughts in a comment. I would also really like to thank all my patrons and channel members for their generous support. If you enjoy House of History and want to support my work, consider joining me on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you already gain access to exclusive Patreon videos and behind the scenes. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.